Okay, welcome to part two. The next thematic relation we're going to talk about is location. Location is kind of like goal, kind of like source, except it doesn't involve a change of location. So, in other words, location is where an action occurs, and the action begins there, and the action ends there. So in this sentence, I stole a cup at the cafeteria. It's at the cafeteria where the action of stealing happens. This is different from the sentence, I stole a cup from the cafeteria, which has the idea of location changing, where the cup came from the cafeteria and has moved to a different location. Our next example, the witch gave Snow White an apple at the dwarf's house. So the action of giving an apple occurred, it began and terminated at the dwarf's house. So that makes it a location and not a source or a goal.
Similarly, Gollum found his precious in the puddle in the cave, which both adverbials specifically suggest where Gollum found his precious.
Okay, the next one is an instrument. An instrument is a tool or object used to perform an action. So this coffee will ignite my thoughts. The coffee is an object performing the action of igniting my thoughts.
Then the next sentence, the witch poisoned Snow White with the poison apple being the instrument of poisoning.
So just a little heads up here, if you see an adverbial with and the thing following it's a direct object, there's maybe a likely chance that it's an instrument. You know, I opened the door with a key. The key was used as an instrument to perform the action of opening the door. I hit him on the head with the hammer. The hammer was used to perform the action of hitting on the head.
Now we're going to talk about the beneficiary, the one who benefits something taking place. I bought him a coffee. He benefited from you purchasing the coffee, and he is the one who is in the beneficiary thematic role. I did the project for my group. My group benefited from the project being done.
So here we have for as a keyword. If you see for someone, it's a good indication that it might be occupying the beneficiary thematic role. However, in our first example, you can see that that's not always the case. I bought him a coffee. Yeah, the buying of coffee was done for the purpose of benefiting him, but there is no for there. So it's a little handy rule, but not necessary all the time.
So now we're going to look into thematic relations versus theta roles. Theta roles are bundles of thematic relations, and they exist in a one-to-one correspondence with arguments.
Yeah, so a theta role, there's only one of them for each argument. However, the theta role can be a collection of different thematic relations. So in the sentence, the witch gave Snow White the poison apple, the witch is an agent, and it's also the source because the apple came from the witch, and the witch is also performing the role of doing the action. So the witch is both agent and source. Typically when we talk about theta role, we talk about, in this case, we talk about the theta role of agent. And the reason for that we can get into later, but suffice to say it's a shorthand. When we say the theta role of witch is agent, we're not saying that the only thematic relation held by the witch is agent, but just that it's the most prominent one, given that give usually requires an agent.
So on our next slide, we will see how we are going to break down these one-to-one relations with a theta grid. Looking at the sentence in the example before, we have the witch gave Snow White the poison apple. The source agent of the determiner phrase is the witch, where the theme is the poison apple, and then the goal is Snow White. As you can see, we have these indexed with I, K, and J.
If you look at the theta grid itself, we'll see that on the top row here, we have the required theta roles. So one theta role is source and agent. So in the case of giving, the agent, the person who gives, is also the source of what's being given. So this could be referred to either as the source theta role or as the agent theta role. But by saying agent theta role, it doesn't mean that the only thematic relation occupied is agent. So a little bit of confusing stuff there. The next row over is theme. So with the verb give, we require an argument theme. And finally, with the verb give, we require an argument goal.
As you can see, we have the theta grid for ponder. Grandpa pondered on the couch for 4 hours last night. In this case, instead of an agent source, we have an experiencer. Grandpa, indexed I.
So In this sentence, yeah, we have grandpa, which is required. This theta role of experiencer is mandated. This argument must be there as a result of the nature of the verb ponder. But what's up with on the couch, and what's up with for 4 hours, and what's up with last night? What are these adverbials doing?
They're adjuncts because they are optional and they're therefore never arguments and never appear in theta grids.
So complements are mandated by verbs. They must exist according to the theta grid of the verb. But adjuncts will never be required, they're always optional, and they never appear in theta grids.
But what's an argument?
Well, an argument is basically the type of, how can we say this? The type of structures that are required by a verb. So going back to the verb give, we see that we require a theme argument, and we require a goal argument, and we require a source/agent argument.
So another way to look at it is valency patterns, as we have looked at in previous classes and in other ways to describe verbs such as transitive, ditransitive, or intransitive.
Right, so this gets back to the whole idea that different verbs require different arguments, and the way we talk about that is with the phrase argument structure.
So now we have a slide about the theta criterion, which is that each argument only gets one theta role, and each theta role is given to only